Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'd like to show you how I made these cards. Now this is using a little bit of a different technique for the background, and I just chose to use some of the designer series paper to add the decoration, but you could stamp on this background, you could do any number of things. And it is a technique that's used using our Brayers. And when you get a package of Brayers, I believe you get 2 handles and 3 or 4 of the little sponge Brayers. And they're fairly inexpensive, so I just got 2 so I wouldn't have to change them out all the time, and I could have multiple colors all going at the same time. Now, what do you need to make this card? It's really pretty simple. What we need for this card is I used a Basic Gray 8.5 by 5.5 scored and folded at 4 1/4, and an Old Olive, the same size, a basic card base, 8.5 by 5.5 scored at 4 1/4. And then for the one that is on the Old Olive base, I used a piece of Whisper White for the outside piece and a piece of Very Vanilla for the inside, and both of those are cut at 4 by 5 1/4. Now for the gray one, what I did was I have a white, Whisper White for the outside to do the background technique, and then I have a piece of Smokey Slate for the inside of the card. And then I'm going to use a little bit of this Myths and Magic washi tape and a couple of pieces of ribbon from Celebration that come in that ribbon pack. So the other thing I'm using is some of our beautiful designer series paper, and I'm using, this one is the same pattern. One of them has a berry burst background and one of them has a white background, and so I'm doing one of each, and you can see I've already been cutting out here and getting what I need. But this paper is so beautiful that you really don't have to do much else to make your decorations on your cards. So let's just get started here, and I'm going to start with the gray one, and I'm going to move my cards out of the way here because I need a fairly large surface for scratch paper and working on this, and we're going to do all of our work really on this piece of Whisper White that's 4 by 5 1/4. And on the gray one, what I have used, Rose Red, a Basic Gray, and Elegant Eggplant for the background here. And let me show you what we're going to do. Part of this is just learning how to use these beautiful little sponge Brayers. They're very versatile. Now these I've used and I haven't washed them off, and these I've used and I have washed them off, and they get a little stained, but I rinse these off to clean the ink off of them just in the sink, and then I use some paper towels to squish all the water out and then let them dry. In a couple hours they're ready to go again. But if you're changing colors and doing a lot, you don't want to have to wait a couple of hours, so that's why I got 2 sets. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is work with my gray, and I've got my gray sponge brayer. And the way to do brayering, whether it's this or the hard brayer, and I think our hard brayer is now retired, it's the same principle. However, you use your roller by going across your ink pad, and you roll and then lift and then roll again. And what that does is ensures if you just do this, you're only going to get ink on there to there because you're going back and over the same place again. So it's real important to lift and then roll. And then with this technique, I like to hold my brayer like this, so I have a little bit better control. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of swish this a couple of different ways. And you can see here that I'm starting to get kind of an interesting pattern here. And I want this gray to show up, particularly along the bottom on this one. And you get different depths, and I'm going to put one small bit on this side. And I think it's just kind of interesting to mess around with this and see what kind of patterns you can get. So right now, that's all I'm going to use that basic gray for. I'll use it for something else here in a minute. And then I'm going to switch to my rose red. And my rose red, I am going to use, and here's the brayer I was using for that. And I just used it along this side. Oh, that points out something you should do when working on this, and that is lay down a little bit of repositioning tape on the back of your panel, because your brayering can move things around. It can kind of mess up your pattern, and I just forgot to do that. But there's my rose red, and I'm just going to add a little swish here of brayered, and I put a tiny bit of gray underneath it. And so there I've got that done. Now I'm going to switch over to my Elegant Eggplant. And I like this kind of combination of colors. And it's not exactly what's in the in the designer series paper, but I thought it matched close enough that I could use these colors, and it was complementary. So again, just creating whatever kind of pattern pleases your eye. And now you could get some interesting patterns here by mixing, like the rose red with this purple would probably give you this, but we also have rich raspberry, which you could also use. And so there we have the background pattern. And isn't that a pretty background? I'll bring this up so you can see it. It doesn't completely cover the white. And yeah, I suppose you could get to the point that it does if you just kept adding more and more layers. But I thought that was enough for me, and it just adds a little different interest. And look how easy that was to be able to add a very interesting border on the back of our card. Then what I did was I picked a section on my card on this designer series paper, like I might select this section, and I fussy cut out enough to go across here, so 5 1/4 inches worth, and pick a spot. And if you can't find an exactly perfect spot, you can always trim a little piece off and make one. Like here, it would be interesting to trim off right about here. And then I've got this piece here that I could fussy cut out to make an interesting drop here. And that's what I was interested in. I was interested in having one that dropped from the bottom, and in the other card, I made one that came up from the, went up the card instead of down the card. And in this one, I wanted to pick up the yellow because I used different colors. So I've already fussy cut my pieces out because I didn't think you'd want to sit there watching me fussy cut. So there is the piece that I fussy cut out for the top of my card. And I didn't cut it all. I didn't fussy cut it all. I just outlined those basic elements that made it look, it worked for my eye. And I laid this down flat because there's so much going on with this paper and this background, and you see my rose-colored background kind of picks up some of the colors in here, and the gray and the purple are complementary, and yet not exactly the same. So what I did on this one was just get my silicone mat here and put some snail down kind of be sure to put plenty of snail down right along these edges because you don't want this to pick up. And then again here across the top of the piece of designer series paper. And this paper is the one from Sweet Soiree. And so I'm going to put this on, and I did cut it probably just a tad larger than I needed because I didn't want to be short. And you can always trim this from the underside to get this so that it lays down perfectly. And see here, I've got a little bit on the back I'm going to have to trim off. Not a problem. And a tiny bit on this end here. And there we have pretty much our card front. Now, what I did was I love the sparkle in this Myths and Magic washi tape. And what I did was I laid this across the bottom. And on this one, I'm going to put a fairly close to the bottom so I have enough room for my sentiment here. And I just put that in place, snipped off a bit. Look at this washi tape. I've already made several cards with it, and this is a lot of washi tape on that roll. Sometimes they're very small amounts, but this one's got actually quite a bit. I'll be ordering a couple extras of those, I think. Anyway, so then it's just a matter of wrapping that around the back. And then I thought, because this is going to sit on a dark gray background, that I would use this beautiful shimmer ribbon from the Celebration catalog to tie the back of the card, the base of the card forward. So I'm going to need a piece here that's going to be able to wrap around to the back. And there we go. I'm going to do what I like to do, which is put a little bit of snail on the back of the ribbon so I can assure that it stays put where I place it. And so there's my ribbon, and what I'm going to do is just lay this across so just a little bit of the sparkle shows outside of the card. Isn't that pretty? And wrap this around the back. It's got plenty of glue on it. And there we go. We've got our piece there. And then I used my Just a Note stamp, which I use a lot. But this one comes from the Flourishing Phrases, I believe it is. And if it's different than that, I'll put it on the screen. And I just love this. And it's one, I make a lot of Just a Note cards and a lot of thank you cards because I'm doing different things to people that have ordered for me, with me. And so I'm going to put my Just a Note in here. And I did that in black. And you could do that in the dark gray and it would be just as pretty. So now I'm going to lay this on top of here. And you can see you immediately get this wonderful pattern of being able to see the gray in here, the gray here, and you pick it up again here. So I'm just going to put some snail on this. This is a very simple card and very fast, and yet it looks like you have done quite a bit because of the brayering technique on the back. And so I'm going to put this one in place right here on the front of my card. Now this one, the flowers filled up more. This one, it didn't fill as much. So on this one, I might just take a little gray ribbon here and make a bow and put that on there as well. Let's see if I can do that quickly here. And there we go. We've got a little bow. And I'm just going to snip off use my ribbon scissors. Otherwise it looks like I chewed that ribbon off. There we go. There we go. And that adds just a little touch that makes the card look a little bit more complete. And so with that, I'm going to use, instead of some glue dots, I think what I will use is a couple of mini dimensionals to raise that up just a bit. And I'm going to add a mini dimensional on the knot of the bow and one on each loop to the side. And I think, because there's not much in the way of dimension on this, that this is going to make the card also look a bit more complete. There's my bow in place, and that's the front of my card done. Now on the inside of this, what I did was I cut out yet another small piece that had that same berry burst background, and so that I could put a decoration on the inside of this card. And then it's a matter of where you think it looks the best. And I'm kind of favoring either a placement here, but I think I kind of like that one. So again, I'm just going to add some snail to the back of this piece of designer series paper, and since I have a straight edge, I'm going to put that edge right along the top of the card and make sure that my whole flower on this side fits on. I put that on the top there, and then put this into place on the inside of my card. And there you have a very fast card. The most important part of this card, I think, is learning the brayering technique, because you can do so much with that background. And I could have put a swash or a swish of one of the colors on this card piece as well, just to tie those two together. But there we go. That's how simple is that? Just a beautiful little card. And then depending on where you cut out your flowers, you get a completely different look. Now, what I'm going to do is go ahead and make up the other one. So this one is one where we have some different colors being used. And on this one, I used, so I'm going to switch out a couple of my, I'm going to use the same one, or let's see, I've got one here for green, and I'm going to just switch out, and all you do is pull this edge over and take out your sponge. And this, you see that this little cylinder here in the middle of the sponge, which holds it in place on the handle, comes out, and it makes washing these up real easy. So now I'm going to put another clean one on here. I've got one for green that I hadn't washed off yet, so I'll just use that. One for yellow, and then I will say this, that when you're doing this technique, because the color is laid down so thinly in the layers, that it pays to use darker, more vibrant colors. Tried using pale colors, like on this one I tried using Wisteria Wonder, and I would have been here all day trying to get enough ink on there so that it looked right. So it's a little easier to use darker colors. Okay, so let me get my pieces for this card, and here we go. And I'm going to again use mostly, let me move these out of the way, mostly do my work on this piece here. And for these, I am using Cajun Craze, Crushed Curry, and again, more vibrant color, and Old Olive. Okay, so on this, it's the same kind of thing. I'm going to start with my Old Olive, and I am going to kind of swish some color on by rolling this first in the Old Olive ink pad to get this roller covered with ink. And you know, it doesn't look like there's much ink on there, but there's more than you think. And then again, I found that holding it this way allowed me to control a little bit better what I was doing. And so there's a couple of interesting looking swishes. And I didn't put my tape on here again. It just seems to help hold it so that it doesn't move, and then you end up with a swish that you weren't really after. So again, here and here, and I'm going to put a little bit on these corners because I don't want it to be too white. But I think that's kind of interesting, actually. All right, so the next color that I used was the crushed curry. And so I've got a brayer here ready to go for my crushed curry. And again, putting a lot of ink on that. And then I thought that would be kind of fun in the middle here. And you see, just because you're going, and the fact that it blends over the green, I think it just makes it more attractive. And so there I've got a nice different kind of pattern on that one, and my yellow is nice and intense. Okay, the last one I'm going to do is Cajun Craze. So, and at first I thought this might look a little bit too much like fall, but given what's in the designer series paper, it didn't work out that way at all. But this would make a lovely background for fall leaves, wouldn't it? So we'll have to revisit this when it comes to be fall again. So on this one, I just took the Cajun Craze and did the same kind of thing, just to get a different kind of pattern on the back here. And there you go. There's that pattern. And isn't that pretty? It just makes such an interesting background. And this was kind of fun to play with and figure out. I was inspired by a woman who has a channel on YouTube, and you should go watch some of her stuff. I don't know if she's active anymore, because some of her videos are a little bit older, but she does a ton of things about technique, and she calls herself the Mad Stamper. And if you just put in Mad Stamper, you'll get the opportunity to go to her channel, and she has tons and tons and tons of things on different kinds of techniques. I love watching her. She's seems to be very, very oriented to teaching techniques to people. And so when I'm lost for inspiration, I go watch the Mad Stamper. And she seems to pull me through. Okay, so on this one, I used the pieces that were cut with the white background. And so I've cut my two pieces, and here's this one, and I think that matches up pretty well. It picks up the yellow that I've got here, certainly the green, and this didn't look too orange and could easily mesh with these rose pinks and that kind of thing. So again, I'm just going to add some snail to the back of my pieces here. And put those in place. This one running along, let's see, this one I think I wanted to do from the bottom up. And I actually do like the way that sits a little bit better. So I'm just going to come right down along the edge. And again, I cut this just a tiny bit bigger than I needed. And there's that pretty background. And there's no reason that you couldn't just do two colors on this. Do the yellow and the green and then the green again. But I kind of like the idea of three colors on here. So once again, I'm just going to trim off the excess from the back here and get this to fit perfectly on my card. And there we have our card front almost done. Now I used this pretty ribbon, and I thought that it kind of picked up some of the oranges here, but it's not jarring for these colors here. So again, I'm going to put this kind of down towards the bottom. Let me cut off a little piece of this that I can use to wrap around. Put my snail on my ribbon. Well, that's fun. It gets caught up in the in the tape runner. So right along the bottom here. And I think that would be really fun too with just a bunch of different stamped images on this piece. So again, no need to even use the designer series paper, although it's such a beautiful bunch of paper that I find I want to try and use it for a lot of things. Okay, on this one I'm going to put a thank you message, and I've got my Memento black ink here, and this thank you, and you could use anything here, congratulations, thank you, thinking of you, any number of things would work. And I'm doing this in black again, and I'm going to put my thank you on this end. There you go, very pretty. I like the script on that one. All right, oh, I forgot to put down my silver first. Let me see if I can fix that. I'm going to take this off and pull this away. Let's see what I did with that washi tape. I think I'm going to get away with that. Okay. Yeah, I just love the sparkle because it picks up the foiling in the flowers, which I liked a lot. Okay, so first I need a piece that's big enough to go across here. And fold this over the back, and then take my ribbon, which has already been glued, and put this along here just so that there's ever the slightest sliver of the silver showing through. And I just love the sparkle that gives this card. Without much effort, you get quite a bit of sparkle. Now this one went on an Old Olive base here, and I'm going to add my snail. Well, I ended up doing both of them from the top instead of one from the top and one from the bottom. Interesting. Anyway, so there's that done. And then I cut another small piece of this paper here, and I have a very vanilla little piece of card cut for the inside of this. Okay, so this I'm just going to go ahead and put on the inside of my card. Here. All right, and then take my piece that I fussy cut out and decide where it would look best on the inside of this card. And I think I kind of like this one up in this corner. So again, making sure I get snail on all of my edges here. And then put this in place right up here along this edge. And I think that makes just a very, very pretty little card. So let me move a few things out of the way because I have a couple of other backgrounds that I did Brayer, and I wanted to share them with you so you could see what they look like. So here are the cards that we did today. So here are the two cards, these two done on the green and these two done on the basic gray. And then I went ahead and Brayered a couple of other, this was my first prototype, and this does look more like the rose red on this one. And so again, this was how I got started. And then I did one where I used Bermuda Bay in the middle and used the yellow on one end and the green on another. And I think that's awfully pretty as well. So there's that technique, very simple to do. And I think it gives you very different looking results and a little dramatic background here for your cards. So that is the project for the day. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching my YouTube channel. I do appreciate it. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would love to be your demonstrator, and or you could join my team. There's special deals going on through the end of March when you join my team. In fact, a lady joined, I think it was yesterday, and she ended up, by the time all was said and done, with $223 worth of product for $99. Because Stampin' Up! Gives you 2 free stamp sets, and she picked some that were a little on the pricey side, and both of those were free. And then she got her $125 for $99, and then she also got her $40 in product from me. And by the time she was done, she had gotten $223 worth of product for $99. So it's a really good deal. It's a wonderful time to start. Plus, if you start now in February, you get 4 months instead of a quarter to make your first minimum, because you have all of March, all of April, May, and through June. So now's a really good time from celebration to start. The prize draw for this month is 2 months worth of Paper Pumpkin subscriptions. We're about to get the February one. Should be in my mail maybe today. And the March one is very exciting because it is the one that's the anniversary Paper Pumpkin. And between now and March 10th, you could order Paper Pumpkin and be subscribed in time to get that special one that'll have a free gift in it and a very special keepsake box. So that's it for me today. Again, thanks for stopping by. I do so appreciate it. And I'll be back soon with more cards and more projects. Bye.